Welcome back to Reliving Retro. This is Season 5, Episode 11. And if you're new here, we pick one game at random every single week, invite a guest on to rate it in 5 different categories: story, gameplay, visuals, sound, and how well it aged. And we have a very special guest on with us. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. It's Andy, aka Love Retro BTW or CafeBTW on the TikTok, YouTube worlds. You might see me around Twitter, Instagram, Threads, because that's new. But
True.
I'm all about, supporting retro nostalgia, not just video games, just things that unlock memories. But I do the CafeBTW podcast on Twitch, which is also a retrospective podcast. I run the Twitter retro gaming community on Twitter. You can check my pinned tweet on that. And then I want to say that, I work for Stand Up to Cancer, and we're actually doing our tentpole streaming event, which is with gamers, content creators, whether you're on Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, kind of coming together the whole month of August. We did our Mario Kart tournament, which you guys were a part of last year. Mm-hmm. That's coming back, but want to make sure I mention that, and I'll probably give you that for the show notes below. But really excited to be here, guys, first of all. Second time on, and it's always fun to be with you, dudes.
Yeah, thanks for coming back.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, definitely check out that stream. We'll get you guys more info when that happens. Yaiser was top 4 in Mario Kart last year, so hopefully we can kind of replicate those results without him getting blackout drunk this time.
No problem.
But yeah, you guys can find us over at Twitter, Instagram, Discord, TikTok, Spotify if you're watching on YouTube, and YouTube if you're listening on Spotify. Also, be sure to check out that Twitch channel where we stream every single week. We stream the game that we're going to play the week. So yeah, head over there, hit that follow button. Mm-hmm. And also check out our Patreon, where for $2 a month, you can join the Patreon and you can put your game that you want us to play. That's going to be the quickest way to get us to play your game. Otherwise, it just kind of gets put into the master list, and there's about 300 to 400 games in there right now. So it takes a little bit longer. Ooh. Yeah, takes a little bit longer. So that being said, Andy, you've been on before. We're going to ask you these questions again, though, because we've got some new subs since the last time you've been on.
I love new subs.
Yeah, of course. So quickly, for everybody, what was your introduction to gaming? Maybe your first console, how you got it, how old you are, that kind of thing.
The farthest back I can go, kind of remembering video games, is definitely the Atari 2600. I was super young though, but I could visually remember playing that on, we were in our little den in New Jersey, and we had this crappy little TV, but we were playing Pitfall and all that stuff. But I think, to be really truthful, the NES in 85, and what I like to always tell people is that I was very lucky, because in 85 the NES only came out in 2 markets, from what I think, don't quote me, but the New York market and the California market, or the Los Angeles area, where they did a pre-release. This had the Rob the Robot, the Duck Hunt, the gun, Gyromite built in, and my first experience was playing Gyromite actually on the NES, which is the game that Rob the Robot literally interacts with, which blew my mind.
That's
as a
super
kid.
Interesting. Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people talk about Gyromite. They always just show Rob the Robot, and they never really connect the two. But really, the sad part of Rob is that they were supposed to make a ton of other games with him, but they really didn't.
Yeah, they only had 2, right? Gyromite and Stack Up.
Yep. Yeah. But it was really a ploy to just make people realize, hey, the video game, this isn't a video game, it's an entertainment system, because they're coming off of the Atari crash. And retailers were actually super scared to sell video games. So Nintendo was smartly calling it the Nintendo Entertainment System. So Rob was a toy. Really smart, actually. Mm-hmm. I mean, look how it all turned out for that. But
they're doing pretty well.
Yeah, they're doing okay.
They're hanging in there.
That said, beyond that, it's really the NES I got to give the true credit to. But I always like to say the 2600 was kind of the first for me.
Nice. That's awesome.
Cool.
So when you played Gyromite, you said you played with your brother quite a bit.
Yep.
Now, was that something you had to fight over because Gyromite kind of takes that second controller?
I wouldn't say that. I think I was more of a watcher in a sense, because I was super young. Mm-hmm. My brother was playing it. And I still remember, as I'm talking to you guys, looking at Rob take this spinning, I don't even know what they were.
Yeah.
And he'd my brother would be ready to get a door open in Gyromite, and then they'd drop in. So I actually think it was not really that kind of, back and forth. It was more as a kid, so young, I was just like blown away. And
By
we
how
just
cool it was, yeah.
in those days we were sharing, and that was okay. We were just blown away.
It is kind of crazy that the Nintendo like kind of kicked off its life with a game you play with a robot friend. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of crazy that, you know what I mean, you sit this robot in front of the second controller and it plays with you. Like,
I would say this Duck Hunt was probably the one game that I remember me and him would like switch off and play a lot of. And as a young kid, Duck Hunt was easy because you're just like point and kill those ducks. But no, we were pretty cool, me and my brother.
Nice. Very cool.
Although we did get competitive, I will just say this one quick note. We were moving in New Jersey to a new house. We literally did a 7-game series in NBA Live 95 on the Genesis to decide who got the bedroom. And I lost. Who got the bigger bedroom?
No.
Yeah.
I lost in game 7. I was the Utah Jazz and he was the Knicks. And this is the 90s. They were really good in that game in 95. But I still remember losing and I missed out on that bedroom. But that's how we decided. And I thought that was really cool.
I was a little alarmed for a second because you said the bedroom, and I'm like, oh man, Andy had to sleep in the basement. That's
no. There were 2 bedrooms. One was tiny compared to the other one. That was like awesome. So he won out.
Well,
fair and square.
Is he older than you?
Yeah, just by 3 years though. So I feel like we were pretty close.
Oh, that's the same. That's the same age range that me and my brother have. I'm older than him by 3 years. Yeah, and I always got the bigger bedroom too.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. So, what would you say some of your favorite games to play are? Say, like your favorite types of games, I guess. Your favorite genres.
Like currently, or I guess current,
all time, currently. You can answer both.
Currently, I will say that I think it's good to mention what kind of modern games I'm playing. Right now I'm playing Diablo 4, Final Fantasy 16. I'm switching off between the two. Nice. Love them both, honestly. I play a lot of tycoon management games, honestly, on Steam as well.
Cool.
There's like weird games I play, like used cars salesman tycoon, anything tycoon related. I just am really into them. But as far as the type of games I really enjoyed playing is always like single player, story games. We talked about Fable on this show. Fable was really important in my career. Obviously side scrolling platformers. But I really dug a lot of sport games, honestly. If you want to talk about old school, I was playing like everything from Madden to NFL 2K to basketball games. Love sport games, but of course, appreciation for I wouldn't say it was like a hardcore RPG guy, but once we started getting into more robust story games, I really got into a lot of that. But it's hard to pinpoint. I'm pretty diverse if you want to take a look back on my experience with games.
Have you played Tears of the Kingdom yet?
I have not.
No. Yeah, I haven't either.
And I'll tell you why. Because I'm saving it for the end of the year when I have vacation at work, and I'm not getting into I kind of want to enjoy it after the craziness of it. So,
I get you.
Yeah.
Yaiser, have you gotten into it yet?
I haven't played it yet. No, but Sarah's got many hours into it.
I was gonna say I always see that you on your Switch profile that you're always on Tears of the Kingdom. And I'm like, is that him or is that his girlfriend?
Not me, man.
No, but it's awesome though.
I'm playing a lot of Diablo 4, loving it. And if you want to talk about one of my favorite games of all time, it's the original Diablo 2, without a doubt.
Oh, it's so good, right?
Without a doubt.
Cool. Did you download editors and shit like Jamela or?
No. Oh, you mean for Diablo 2?
Yeah, back in the day.
You know what? I was a straight shooter, man. I didn't really do any of the cheating or that skin stuff. I just played and that was it. Diablo 1 had something where you could go purchase. I forgot what happened there, but it kind of ruined Diablo 1 because people kept buying characters. I don't know what it was, but it ruined Diablo 1 kind of. But I didn't get into that stuff though.
Were you guys big into RuneScape?
Nah.
No, I never played RuneScape.
No,
I'm not. All I know is that people want gold. That's all I know. It's all about gold or something.
That's too funny. All right, so yeah, my next question was going to be what games have you played lately, but you kind of hit that one already.
Oh, sorry.
So,
there you go.
No, that's fine. We did 2 in 1 there. All right, so this week we played WWF No Mercy for the N64. And Yaiser, you had a little bit of experience playing this game before this week, right?
I don't know about this game, but definitely a few of the other
Of like the other wrestling games.
wrestling games for sure.
Yeah,
Like I had WCW versus NWO and like a couple of other WWF ones. Yeah.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I think I had just about all of them except for like WCW Mayhem. I didn't have that one, and I also didn't have like the ECW games, but I had all the WWF games and the first 2 or 3 WCW NWO games. I was huge into them when I was a kid, and actually, funny story about the wrestling games in particular. My sister used to work at Price Chopper. And this was back. This seems really weird, I think, for any young kids that are potentially watching the show right now. Price Chopper and like Hannaford, like those types of stores. Like, well, it was called Shop and Save when we were kids, but
grocery stores.
Yeah, any of those like grocery stores, they used to rent games, which seems so weird.
Oh
now,
yeah,
probably.
I remember that.
Like it wasn't just like explaining Blockbuster to kids of like today is weird. But like even like the fact that like grocery stores used to do it, I think also kind of gets swept under the rug. My sister used to work for Price Chopper, and she used to just swipe games, man. She used to swipe them all. Most of my N64 games just said property of Price Chopper on them. She used to bring them home all the time. She used to do that with movies and games, and she got fired. And I love her for that because she got me so many N64 games.
That's awesome.
Wow.
You know, thievery, but also at the same time, you know, she did it out of love. So I got a lot of these wrestling games because of that. This one, however, WWF No Mercy, my mom actually bought me legally. So I thank you, Mom, for buying me this game because it was fantastic.
Nice.
I played this game a ton as a kid. Andy, I assume you had quite a bit of experience with this one.
Oh my God, yes. At the time, I was a huge wrestling fan. Also, at the time, you know, like I was in Jersey, and this shows my age, but ECW was a big thing, and they were
huge in like like South Jersey and
they would be
Philadelphia
in
and stuff like that.
Asbury Park. I actually went to Living Dangerously in 1998, which is the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
But I was already a big fan of wrestling. Also, I worked for this guy. I would go to these indie house shows. They were all over, and I would help him sell his imported VHS tapes, like Chris Benoit in Japan, Sabu in Japan, like crazy tapes. And by the way, I wish I still had those tapes.
Those would be super rare, probably.
Like I had Jericho in Japan, stuff like all these Japan death matches and stuff. It's insane. Yeah. But there was a really special thing about, and I'm going to be specific, as there were a lot of games. It was the developer Aki Corporation. I don't know if I'm butcher. I always used to say AKI, but I think it's Aki.
I think it is Aki. I think you're right.
They were the geniuses behind like WCW versus NWO The World, No Mercy, WrestleMania 2000, and Revenge, right? Yeah. And what was cool is the first games were actually WCW, but then when we hit WrestleMania 2000, I went to WWF or WWE. Yep. But No Mercy is interesting because this is the great thing about a series of games, right? These games evolved every release. It didn't matter if it was WCW or WWE. Everyone evolved. And then when we got to No Mercy, it was like the pinnacle, because what happened was Aki ended up not doing those games with the next generation consoles. They did do the Death Jam games, though, which people don't realize. Some people don't even know they did that. And those games are amazing.
Yep.
So that was their modern equivalent after the N64. But No Mercy was I think, just like you would rate NFL 2K5 personally as one of the greatest football games of all time.
Agreed.
No Mercy is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, encompassing wrestling game ever made. And I want to give it more on the gameplay side, but the customization, the moves, the amazing fun we had. Because what's also cool, in No Mercy, you could trade belts. So you could have a group of friends and all the belts are empty, but each person can do a match and you could put a belt up. So we would watch Raw on Monday, then we would do our own Raw on No Mercy, and people actually had belts. Like I won the world title, but then I lost it. And then we would decide when titles would go up and stuff like that. And No Mercy allowed us to do that. And that's one feature a lot of people don't realize it had. So we all created characters, you know. Unfortunately, I only got to be champion once, which is sad. But I was like intercontinental champion at a point. I was a tag champ with another friends.
Right.
So this one really is one of the games that I played a ton back then, and it is fantastic. There's definitely some negatives to it in its own right, but what can I say? It was one of the best wrestling games ever made. Still is.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to dispute that. I mean, I think some people probably will. People that didn't grow up with it may say other, other
Sure.
things. But, Yaiser, how much did you play this game this week?
I only played it with you, my friend.
When we streamed for about an hour and a half or so, I'd say. So yes, you put in about an hour and a half worth. I put in about 2.5 hours because I wanted to try out the story mode a little bit to kind of get a sense of what that was. And I remember playing through it as a kid, but I just needed a little refresher course on it.
Yeah.
What about you, Andy? Did you play it at all this week?
I actually did. Well, sadly, I have my N64 here. I don't have I wish I had my back in the day, like character sets and stuff, but I ended up just playing just a few matches, just with some, people I want to be, but really didn't have the time to do a custom character, which I would have liked to have done. It took like weeks to get that right.
Oh my God.
But no, I played a little bit, just a few matches, but it's a game that's living rent free in my head forever. So I don't need to really play it again all the time.
It's so funny that you say that it took you weeks because I used to go to my buddy's house, and I think I've said this before a little bit. We used to actually go to his grandfather's, and we would sleep over there on like a Friday night or something. And me, him, and his cousin would all trade off like hours for gaming. And like whenever, like I think it was when No Mercy came out, he wanted to like each one of us make a character, and he would take the entire hour to make his character, where like we would make our characters in like 20 minutes and then have like 40 minutes to mess around and like get used to the move set and stuff like that. And he would take the entire hour, even pushing it to like an hour 10, and we're like, let's go, buddy, your hour's up already. He's like, oh, I just gotta finish this last move set, like because he's like he's looking at every single move to make sure like it it fits and stuff like that. And I'm like, come on, buddy, let's figure it out. It's too long.
it was more like, yes, I made the character, but it would probably take me like 2 hours to build the character. But then, like when you play it out, you want to like fix things. So it got very technical. Like
it does.
And once you know how to play, there's so much involved. So do you know what a tree of woe is? A tree of woe is when they're on the turnbuckle and you turn them upside down with their legs. There's literally move sets for a tree of woe. And when I discovered that stuff, I'm like, oh my God, I got to do some crazy tree of woe, like finisher or whatever. Really phenomenal use of customization in a time where you wouldn't have expected that much customization. And that's what made the game so freaking special. One of my characters was called OSW, and in high school, it's a long story. It was kind of like a nickname for me. And my other character, which I made, was a luchador named El Fumar. He was kind of like an Eddie Guerrero type, but he was the smoke in Spanish is El Fumar. But he was like this really, like he had like a funny mustache. That's
a cool name, actually. I like that.
It was an awesome name, and he became like my main. I never won a title with him, but I won a title with OSW. But I think it's just that. It's just I don't know. Now I'm just rambling, but it's fantastic. I keep going. I don't know.
Yeah, no.
What did you ask me? I don't know.
I don't remember either, but it was cool. All right. Let's get into story. All right, Andy. Since you were on a roll here, why don't you start us off with story? What would you rate the story mode of this game?
Are we rating?
Oh yeah.
That's a tough one. I feel like I played the story. I thought it was cool, but at times I think I migrated away from story. I'm going to give the story, if I had to give you a story, I would only play it like through once maybe. So I'm going to give it a 2. I'm so sorry. Like,
okay. I'm really mad at you. No, I'm just kidding. So I'm going to go next here because I actually have probably almost the complete opposite view. So I gave story a 3.75. And now here's the reasoning, right? So for a wrestling game that came out in the year 2000, I'm not expecting any story, honestly. And the fact that there is story is amazing to me, number one. And so how many belts are there? There's the world heavyweight, there's the light heavyweight, There's hardcore, intercontinental,
tag,
European, tag, hard. I think I already said hardcore. Women's. I think there's 7 titles, right? So the fact that you can go through and try to win every single one of these belts with different characters is really cool. All the stories for each belt are different. The fact that you can pick a reigning champion, and that story is different because it's all about defending the title. You don't need to win every single match either, because if you lose a match, then that changes like kind of like the story that you have going on with your character. I think it got really, really in depth when it didn't need to at all. So I had to give it a lot of credit for that. So I ended up at 3.75 for story. What about you, Yaiser?
So I never, I didn't play the career mode or story mode or whatever you want to call it, but I know that it exists.
That's good.
So, when we played multiplayer, I didn't, there's really nothing other than the stories that already existed in, the TV world of wrestling, right?
Yep.
So, but just knowing that there was like a career mode that you could play, I give it a little bit of credit there, because I didn't know that it goes as deep as you're saying it does. But
it goes pretty deep, actually. Yeah.
I gave it a 2.5.
Okay.
I didn't.
That's where I figured you'd land on it. You know what I mean? Like kind of just knowing about the story existing and that kind of thing, but you didn't really get to experience the story mode. Yeah. And I didn't dive into it, a whole lot either. I did watch some videos on it just to kind of see like how different is it? Like if I played through the story as Stone Cold Steve Austin to do, the heavyweight title, is it really that differently than playing through it as Triple H? You know what I mean? And it can be, depending on what you choose to do throughout the story, which I think is pretty interesting. It's not Fable level by any means, but you know what I mean? But the fact that it does change a little bit, depending on the results of matches or whatever, I think is pretty cool. It's pretty interesting. So
I mean, I feel bad I gave it a low rating, but the reason for me is that I really just ended up never playing it and just playing with friends, and I connected more on creating our own storylines than. But I will say I think you're probably good at that 3.75 because it was pretty cool.
Well, yeah, but I totally get your point of view too, because I think if we ever got to the point where we are, we're reviewing Halo or Halo 2 or something like that. I've never played any of those for the storyline. I've only played them for the multiplayer. So, you know what I mean? Like the only Halo I've ever played for the story, it was Halo 3. And it was only because my buddy was like, dude, you have to play the story. Just play it. And we played it co-op. And that was the only, I would have never played it if it was by myself.
I mean, those stories are pretty cool, but still that's not what we're playing Halo for.
That's not why we bought the game at all. No, exactly.
Hey, I think Halo 1, the story was awesome. Like it was fun to play the story mode in Halo 1, I feel like. That's the only time.
There's no online play on that game, so.
Oh, that's right. No, that's not true. I used Xbox Connect back in the day because you could connect your Xbox to the internet, and there was a site called Xbox Connect, and you could literally play online Halo 1, 16 players, 8 on 8. That was a real thing.
Never knew that.
It was amazing. Cool. Because the original Xbox had the Ethernet and what was called there was an option called network something. I forget what it said. And basically what people did was they created their own online servers that you could connect your Xbox to the computer, and then you matchmake. You should look online. It was a thing. I guess I'm like a minority in that because we were very
cool. Yeah,
my buddy hooked it up, dude. We were playing in what was the famous board that's wide open on Halo 1. It's got you're riding the warthogs.
Yeah, the big one. I forget the name. I know what you're talking about.
I never really played Halo 1, to be honest with you. I didn't get super into Halo until Halo 3. But
there you go.
I played shit out of Halo 2 online, but
Halo 2 though was when the online became a part of it. So you're right.
Halo 2 is probably, we're getting off topic here, but Halo 2 is probably what turned online multiplayer into the online multiplayer that it is today.
Honestly. I would agree with that 100%.
I think Halo 2 is the one that kind of pushed it forward to where it is. All right, let's move over to gameplay. All right, Yaiser, I'm going to start off with you here.
Okay, so here we go. It was fun playing co-op, right? But at the same time, also pretty frustrating because the controls, because I didn't play the shit a shit ton of this like back in the day. So like
Mhm.
the controls were very I don't want to say counterintuitive, but definitely not intuitive to figure out how the fuck you're supposed to do your moves and what the fuck the buttons do. And I feel like if I wasn't playing with you, I would have
Been frustrated.
probably put it down after 15 minutes and just like, I don't even know how to play this game. It's not telling me anything. There's no way to in the game to look up how to play, what the buttons do. So yeah, that was a little bit frustrating. And like especially because like we played a cage match and a ladder match. How the fuck are you supposed to know that to climb out of the cage you gotta mash C up and A together, or to
Yeah.
climb the ladder and grab the case you gotta mash C up and B together? There's no way you would ever figure that out.
It is
if
weird that
wasn't
they
for-
changed it. That is, I'll give you that much. It is weird that it's changed, right? Because we had to look it up while we were live, right? Because after so many attempts of getting to the top of the cage, my guy was literally just laying on the mat for 15 minutes. You just kept falling off the cage by
Yeah.
yourself.
I would just climb the ladder and jump off at you every time. Like, no,
Yeah.
grab the fucking case, dude. So like I don't know. It was fun, but
Yeah.
I think only in the multiplayer setting for me would it have been fun. I don't think I would have had any fun at all if I were to play single player. So
where'd
again,
you land?
I'm right down the middle at 2.5 here.
Okay, I'm disappointed because I thought you had a great time. I'm gonna be honest. I felt
did,
like,
but I did have a fun time, but I had
Yeah.
to take into consideration if I wasn't playing co-op with you, it would have been a miserable time for me.
Okay, I guess. Well, that's fair. It helped that you were able to at least smack me in the face with a ladder about 100 billion times.
That was fun.
It felt like you hit me that many times.
That was fun.
All right, Andy, what about you? Where are you gonna put the gameplay here?
This is easy for me. It's a 5 all the way, and I'll tell you why.
Mhm.
And I'm with you, man. The controls are very tough, but here's the selling point for me. The N64 controller was actually built perfectly for this game. It has a learning curve, but what happened with me is that if you started playing it when WCW versus NWO came out, you started to learn the process and the gameplay of this style game. And every time there was a new release, I kept just kind of riding a bike with the controls. And by the time I got to No Mercy, it was all like the wheels were greased and I knew what I was doing. But with the amount of customization, and once it clicks, it's pretty amazing. Like the way they use the yellow pad as a way to throw people to the ropes.
Yep.
And just like the little nuances, yes, it's kind of confusing and difficult if you've never played it before, but it's the type of game you really want to put, you have to put a learning curve behind. But once it all clicks and you know how to do everything, like I said, the Tree of Woe, how to do this, how to get out of a cage, how to, once you figure that out, it's like clicks together, and the game that's why it's still one of the greatest wrestling games of all time. That's why AEW's Fight Forever that just came out tried to make a game that played just like No Mercy. I don't know if you guys know that.
Yep.
That they modeled this.
But I heard, yeah.
I have, and yes, it has sort of that vibe, but and it feels that way. And that's how awesome and brilliant No Mercy is that they made a game in 2023 that's trying to replicate that feeling, because the 2K series is like, I'm not even going there. I'm not going to even touch that. Not to say the graphics aren't good and whatever, but I picked up AEW just for that, just for the fact that they wanted to make a spiritual successor. And you know what? The gameplay's there. I feel it. Like I see what they tried to do. They got a long way to go, but guys, it's one of my favorite games of all time. Kept me involved, kept me playing for hours on end. So I'm giving it a 5 straight up.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'm closer to Andy here than I am to Yaiser for sure. I landed on a 4.25, and I don't think it's perfect. I don't think it's perfect, but I actually think that the controls are actually pretty easy to pick up. Of course, there's a few things. I will admit that the first time I picked up this game this week, I played I was Stone Cold Steve Austin, and I played against Taka Michinoku. I just picked a random person, and I don't dislike Taka, but I played against Taka Michinoku, and I got to be honest, I could not figure out how to pin. And I'm like, nope, I'm going to figure it out. I can't I'm not going to look it up, right? It's got to be like C down or something like that, or like maybe A down, or it's got to be something down, right? Because I'm standing above him while he's on the floor. No, it's L. Just for anybody that wants to know, it's L. That's how you pin. But I played it for 15 minutes, couldn't figure it out. And then so I just went and got the stairs and hit him with the stairs and was disqualified. And that's how my match ended. Because I was just going to end the match. And I'm like, I got to figure it out. He's not beating me, but I'm going to hit him with some stairs. So I couldn't figure it out without looking it up. So I do agree with Yaiser that some things are a little cryptic if you don't have the manual. So it makes it a little hard to go back and just pick up and play. While I do also, in the same vein, agree with Andy that if you're talking real time when this came out, if you're a big wrestling fan, you already played those Aki games that were already released. So this game was pick up and play as the new Call of Duty. If you're into all the Call of Duties, the new Call of Duty that comes out, it's the same thing. You just keep riding that bike, just like Andy said. So I agree with both of you here in a sense, right? Because it really just depends on perspective. That's why I kind of landed like 4.25, because I can see both sides of this coin. As far as like gameplay goes, it has a ton of wrestlers. This might be the best Attitude Era roster of any WWF game I think that has come out. Maybe SmackDown, like Just Bring It or something like that, could rival that. But to me, like the year 2000 is sort of like peak Attitude Era, and this roster certainly shows that.
You had everybody.
Yeah, much. Really. Like, I mean, I could go through like the entire list, but it's really just it's too big of a list. Like, there's 74 playable characters. That's so many for this game.
It was so good they had Val Venus in this game. Okay, remember Val Venus?
Choppy, pee.
They have
remember that, dude?
I remember that, dude. Fuck
they had Al Snow, which is an ECW legend.
Yep.
Dean Malenko. I'm looking at like the people that I pulled up a list.
Yeah, I pulled up.
Where was Shawn Michaels though?
So I was just gonna say he's an unlockable. Here are the unlockable.
I was looking
wrestlers.
for him when we were playing.
Oh, really? Yeah. So here are some of the unlockable characters. We have Andre the Giant, Cactus Jack, Deborah, Earl Hebner, the Fabulous Moolah, Funaki, Gerald Briscoe, Ho. So just a Ho, and then Howard Finkel, Ivory, Jacqueline, Jerry Lawler, Jim Ross, Ken Shamrock, Linda McMahon, Mae Young, Michael Cole, Mick Foley, Pat Patterson, Paul Bearer, Shane McMahon, Shawn Michaels, Taka Michinoku, Terry, and Vince McMahon. So quite a few unlockables there. This is the other thing that I had to really give gameplay, is that there's so much to do. So much. We haven't even discussed the fact that there's a shop. And you can go into the shop and you can buy attire for your customizable characters. And speaking of customizable characters, you could go into, like, if you wanted to change like Chris Jericho's pants, you could. If you wanted Chris Jericho to have purple hair, you could do that. You could change his face to somebody else's face. You could make Chris Jericho have The Rock's face if you wanted. Like, the amount of customization in this game is insane. So I feel like I'd be doing this game an injustice if I didn't bring up just the sheer madness amount of like customization you could do in this game. One of my absolute favorite things to do as a kid was to save up money to unlock all the different finishing moves. There's like the big swing where like you spin around and throw them. They also they snuck in some WCW finishers in there. There's the Jackknife Powerbomb from Kevin Nash. There's they call it the Insider's Edge in the game, but it's the Outsider's Edge for Scott Hall. They have the Jackhammer in there for Goldberg. So it's like they also have the Scorpion Death Drop in there for Sting. They have Ric Flair's like Old Man Flop. Like, there's so many good ones that they have in there for like just throw in. Like you could make WCW characters. That's what they were trying to let you do, is to make your own WCW characters.
And it was like a lot of respect too, by including those taunts. And
for sure,
I think that was really cool that it's funny you brought up the Ric Flair one, because I forgot that was in that. And he was, I think Ric Flair was in the Revenge and WCW versus the World, which is cool too. But
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's what wrestling fans love, right? And wrestlers, they're constantly changing their outfits. They like, it's all about flair. So the game gave you that. It gave you all the flair you wanted,
And I mentioned Chris Jericho specifically because I thought that he had like some kind of like logo on the side of his pants, and for whatever reason, that logo looked cool with any color. And I just remember changing it all the time as a kid.
Nice.
Because I was a huge like Y2J fan when he'd made that switch from WCW to WWF. I was like, what? Like
that entrance
mind
was awesome.
blown. Yeah. So specifically him, I used him all the time when I was a kid, but I also used Stone Cold Steve Austin a ton. I was a big fan of Kane and Triple H and stuff like that. Andy, who did you use when you played this game?
Let's see. The thing is that I played. Let me look at the list because I think
you probably used your customizable character.
I did, but I don't want to say his name because he turned out to be a terrible person. But Chris Benoit,
it's okay. Yaiser used him on our live.
I picked him.
Well, at the time, I really liked Chris Benoit. He was one of the greatest technical wrestlers at the time. Mm-hmm. He was a big Japanese wrestler. They call him the Crippler because he accidentally broke Sabu's neck in ECW.
Accidentally, we find
how they call him.
Well, no, but I'm not. I think he's like what he did.
Yeah. We're all
never
just joking here. Yeah.
But I'm being honest. I use Chris Benoit a lot. Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero.
Yep.
I would mix in Dean Malenko sometimes. I love the technical.
A lot
wrestlers.
of those WCW guys, huh? Those guys that started off in WCW, you made that transition over to WWF with them.
Trying to think who else. Like I kind of stayed away from all the big dog. Al Snow I used definitely. Mm-hmm. For fun, The Godfather. But I think it was Chris Benoit was my main go-to though. Yeah.
Nice. What about you, Yaiser? Did you have a main?
No, I didn't play it enough to really have one.
Well, did you have a favorite wrestler? I guess if you could have a favorite wrestler, who would that be for you?
The Rock was my favorite wrestler back in the day. Obviously,
you can't say obviously because Stone Cold is better, but like
I don't know.
I mean, he's definitely better, but
yeah, him. I was an X-Pac fan too. The whole D-Generation X, but
yeah, that's cool.
I will say X-Pac, like in real life, probably has he probably has the best kicks I think I've ever seen. Like some of his kicks are absolutely insane. Yeah.
They translate pretty good in the game too. Even
they actually did. They look really good in the game. I think we even like mentioned that during our live stream of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had to mention the characters, and I had to mention just the sheer amount of like customization that you can do. You can even, another thing that we didn't bring up is that you can make your own pay-per-views and schedule your own matches and stuff like that. Yeah. And I thought that was absolutely awesome. I will say I had an issue, and I don't know if this is just a user error. I'm not really sure, but I did have an issue making it so that a Royal Rumble was only going over the top rope for elimination. I don't know why, but it seemed like I couldn't make it just over the top rope, and I had to add some sort of like pinfall or submission also, because I tried to eliminate all that stuff, and it said this match will end in a draw, and I'm like, oh, so everybody that comes in just stays in the ring, we all just have fun together? Like, I'm not sure what's happening. But yeah, I couldn't get that working, so that made me a little upset, because Royal Rumbles are probably one of my favorite things to do in wrestling games. But other than that, absolutely love the gameplay, and like I said, 4.25. So let's move on to visuals. And Andy, you want to kick it off for visuals?
Yeah, so this is interesting. I always see like memes about, there's always this meme about looking, I forget what it is, but there's like this meme of No Mercy where they're saying, look at graphics then compared to now. And they use No Mercy as like a reference. I have to find the meme. But I think for the time, I wasn't very like, oh man, the graphics suck. I actually thought it was cool. And there was just something boxy and silly about the way Aki did that. And I kind of loved it. But I will give it a 2.7 on visuals. Okay. I don't want to ruin my aging score, but I just think that I feel like I don't know. It's actually, I could probably be leaning towards more 3 now that I think about it. But I'll just stick with 2.7 just because I feel like there were other N64 games that might have looked a little bit better. There were some funny looking things that were going on in that game. But
For sure.
but again, it didn't bother me. And again, the most important thing was just I need to recognize the wrestlers, know what they look like, can mess with their designs. But I think if you take a look at it from perspective, comparing it to games at the time, I don't know, it wasn't visually amazing or anything. It was simple. It was like, here's your wrestling ring. Here we go. The fans. I don't know. 2.7 for me.
Yeah. I'll piggyback off you here. I have it a little bit higher than that. I think 3.5 is kind of where I landed, and here's why. The N64, throughout all of the games that we've gone back to play, throughout all of the consoles that we've gone back to play, through nearly 5 full seasons of the show so far, the N64 has unanimously been the worst console visual wise going back to. And as soon as we booted this game up for our live stream, me and Yaiser both were like, this looks pretty good, like way better than we thought it was going to look. I do agree with what you're saying, Andy. Like in retrospect, it's it's not great by any means, but I don't look at it as like GoldenEye has that weird like face like stretch around like the head thing, and I don't think this has that nearly as bad.
That's true.
It doesn't look as like awkward. Their faces at least don't to me. And the arena is actually a huge step up from like WrestleMania 2000 and the the WCW games. The arena actually looks way bigger. It actually looks like you're in an arena now, whereas like the games prior looked way smaller. Like it looked like almost like you were on like a high school stage. Like the arenas just looked really, really small. And that might be an odd thing to pick up on, I guess. But I just noticed that, and it felt more like I was watching a wrestling show and less like I was playing like a very small wrestling video game, because some of this, like the Super Nintendo wrestling video games, like it was really just the ring, like, and you kind of just see audience in the background, where this, you can see the like almost the entire arena. And I just felt like it just made it like have a bigger feel to it. And I thought that was really cool. I kind of took like a quarter of a point away, I guess, because WrestleMania 2000, the game before that, had like full entrances, and this game doesn't. It took them away. It you can see them like come out to like onto like the stage, and you see like there's not really a video. It's kind of just pictures that play for the N64, which is just another thing that ages the N64 poorly, because if it was a disc system like the PlayStation had like full motion video and a better quality soundtrack when you would play these games. But other than that, I don't think it takes too much away from the experience, because after you watch one entrance, you kind of just skip them anyway. So I don't think that's a big deal.
If you're playing these games, the entrances anyways,
Yeah, it's really not that big a deal.
Yeah.
But other than that, I thought the visuals looked pretty good. It wasn't hard to look at all, so I gave it a 3.5. What about you, Yaiser?
I gave it, so like you said, as soon as we fired this up, I think the first thing I said to you was like, this looks a lot better than I expected it to look.
Right.
It's interesting.
Yeah, because like you were saying, we've played some N64 games and some PS1 games, games too. That are just like the PS1 specifically. Just everything looks so grainy, I feel like, on the PS1.
Yeah,
and the N64, everything looks so like boxy, right?
This I would say is probably one of the more polished N64 games in terms of visuals to me.
Yeah, it really it didn't look that bad, although still not that great. So I'm gonna give it a 3, but it did surprise me. I expected it to be a lot worse.
It's kind of like you have to grade like the N64, like this general like generation, I guess. You have to kind of like grade on a scale, because it's the first like 3D generation. It's really tough to go back and be like, this looks great still, because it really doesn't, but it looks great in comparison to the other games of its generation. And that's kind of how I graded it. That's usually how I grade all these games. It's like how well does this game hold up compared to its peers, not compared to all time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like maybe I was a little bit harder, but it's interesting. You guys have been playing a ton of N64 games recently. So it's interesting to hear that comparison, that you actually think it looks a little better.
Yeah, I mean, for example, just from this season, we've played Crash Bandicoot, Tenchu 2, Perfect Dark, Twisted Metal, and out of those N64 and PS1 games, I would say that No Mercy probably looks second best, maybe.
Yeah, behind Banjo, maybe.
No, I mean just of this season. I think it looks better than Twisted Metal. I think it looks better than Perfect Dark. I think it looks better. It definitely looks way better than Tenchu 2, and that came out the same year. I think the only game that probably looks better than it is Crash Bandicoot. That's just my opinion, but anyway, let's move over to sound. And I guess I'll kick sound off because I haven't started with one yet.
Okay.
The theme songs are awesome. They bring you right back to the late 90s, early 2000s. Obviously, some of them they couldn't play. One of us picked The Undertaker or we were going against The Undertaker or something like that, and they couldn't play Rollin' by Limp Bizkit, right? So they didn't do that, and they just played the Raw is War theme song for The Undertaker, which was a little bit of a bummer, but obviously they weren't hitting up, Fred Durst for some copyright.
That's some pricey copyright back in that day.
I'm sure. But overall, I actually loved the sound. I thought it sounded really good. I do think that, I don't know if this is maybe something in the settings that you could turn on, but we didn't have announcers in ours. And I'm like, I don't know if I like that better or worse, because sometimes when you play a wrestling game over and over and over again, the announcers get super repetitive and it kind of becomes very tired and boring. And we didn't have that issue because I don't know are there announcers in this game, Andy? Do you know of?
Now that I think about it, I don't think so. I think that they might have in the story mode cut and you see like Jim Ross and Michael
and they'll
Cole
like
on the
talk,
side. And they'll like talk, but it's a really good point. I don't think so.
There's no voices for like the cutscenes and stuff like that in the story. Like that's for sure.
So I don't think so.
That's something that's lacking. Actually, like WWF Attitude, I think, which came out like years before this. Also a different developer though. That game had announcers. So, that's a little bit of a hiccup there, I suppose. Because if somebody wants announcers, they could have had the option to turn it on or off. But I don't believe there's even the option. I think there's just no announcers. But overall, I really enjoyed the sound. I thought the wrestlers' themes, I thought they sounded really good for it being a cartridge-based system where they couldn't, you can't play like CD-based quality on that. So I gave it a 4 overall because I actually thought it was really solid for what it was, and all the sound effects I felt like were good. I think one of my favorite sound effects I think that were in the game is when you hit somebody with a low blow and the ring bell sounds, and I thought that was pretty hilarious. So just sound effects like that, and like I said, the wrestler themes were good enough to me to give it a 4. What about you, Andy?
Ooh, I have 2 words, and if you played this game, you know exactly what these means. It's diggity dog.
Yeah.
And the menu music is diggity dog. Diggity dog.
Sacco.
And that will forever be embedded in my brain.
It's so good.
It's so good. It's so weird, yet like
it's very 2000s. Yeah.
But it like I remember someone posted like something recently, like I don't know, it was on TikTok actually. It was like they played the Diggity Dog song and it was like a CapCut meme, like actor dancing. And it's like, if you remember this, and like it was like a huge viral post. But so obviously wrestling is synonymous with music, entrances, and like you said, I think you nailed it, is for a cartridge game, this thing was full of awesome theme songs, sound effects, menu music, which we just talked about. I'm giving it a 4. I'm gonna one up you, 4.1 for sound.
Oh wow, really one up me. Okay, I like that. That's cool.
By 1 because you didn't mention the menu sound.
That's true. I didn't.
And just because the Diggity Dog, I'm giving it that extra 1. But really, I was super happy with the music. It was great.
Yeah, no, I thought it was awesome. What about you, Yaiser?
Okay, well, prepare to be upset with me because I thought, the menu music was cool for, I don't know, a couple minutes. But then it just keeps saying diggity dog and like
that soccer gets me every time, man. Every time.
let's maybe say something else, okay?
Why are you
love
hanging
that.
out on the menu for so long, Yaiser? Play the game.
I am bad at making decisions, so here I am. But I mean, yeah, cool. Obviously, all the theme songs, obviously they're awesome. But like that's not the game doesn't get credit for that. Like the game didn't make those up. I'm not giving it credit for all that.
Fine.
Fair enough.
I guess I did give it a little bit, but I gave it a 3 overall.
Okay,
Alright.
that's higher than I thought you were gonna say.
Yeah, because I mean, it was cool that they had all the theme songs, but like the game isn't responsible for those.
No,
songs.
Jim Johnston wrote most of that music, but I will say they're pretty faithful renditions. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like the game still had to play them. You know.
yeah, I get that, but
yeah, I get what you're saying, man. I mean, I wish you liked the menu music a little bit more. You know what I mean? Like it's so good. It's so catchy. All right.
Diggity Dog. You're gonna have nightmares of Diggity Dog.
All right, let's move over to Aged. All right, Andy, you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, so obviously I gave so if we look at my scores, I gave story 2, I gave visuals a 2.7, which I kind of feel guilty about now, but that's okay. Sound I gave 4. But I think the gameplay 5, and the fact that I feel like it still lives up to its gameplay status. And just the nostalgia it brings me. I think the visuals obviously didn't age well. But I'm going to give it a nice, I'm also going to give it, just because I still love this game so much, it's a 4 for me. Just because, I don't know, for me, it's a personal preference, as it's up there on the mantle of awesome games. Not only that, we didn't talk about, it's a black cartridge, it's kind of unique to itself.
Right.
For the N64's ugly gray cartridges, it was cool. It was edgy with its black cart. So I have the black in my cabinet, and I look at it every now and then. But I want to say 4. I just think it's great. I think it still holds up in a lot of ways.
Cool. What about you, Yaiser?
So I guess I don't really have the nostalgia goggles, we'll call it, I guess,
Right.
for this game. I mean, I played a couple of these wrestling games back in the day, and I mean, I was a wrestling fan for a couple of years, I would say. Yeah. So I don't know. I just feel like the controls not being all that intuitive to me really kind of hindered it a little bit. And also just the graphics of this generation as a whole,
You feel like it got a docket a couple points just for being on the N64?
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, that it shows its age, right? Because it's one of those games. But it wasn't horrible. I'm not gonna kill it here, so I gave it a 2.5 because that's basically how I felt about the game overall. Was
you felt like it was a 2.5, huh?
Basically.
But that's a good point for someone that's not connected to it. I feel like that's fair.
This is why I think the show is a lot of fun, because for me, who has a ton of nostalgia with a lot of these games that we play, I'm like, oh, I love this game. Literally one of my favorite games of all time. And Yaiser's like, it's all right. Relax. You know what I mean? Because he's never played it before, right? So he doesn't have the nostalgia with growing up with it, and he's playing it, as a 33, 34-year-old man who's never played the game before. It's the very first time. So it's so interesting
sad
to
when
me.
you say it that way.
Well, I'm saying I played it when I was 7, you know what I mean? Some of these games I've played before I was 10 years old, and I've grown up with them and continued to play for 25 years. So for me, it's it's something I've always known, but for you, it's I'm play this game. You know what I mean? And you're like, it's okay. So it's fun to get that, it's fun to get that different perspective. And I mean, last week, I never in a million years, you don't like platformers. It's a game for the Game Boy. Never would have thought that you would have rated Kirby's Dream Land so high. You know what I mean? But
action platformer.
Yeah,
That's the
action
difference.
platformer, fine.
It
Yeah,
is.
right, because he has an attack, right? It's not
You
just
got all
jump.
the attacks and all those boss fights, man. That's what I love.
Yeah, that's fair. But I will say, like, that's my favorite part of the show is like Yaiser disappointing me week after week after week.
It wouldn't be fun otherwise.
Right.
If you guys
see?
agreed on everything, you know?
Right? Wouldn't
Yeah,
be
it
a
would be
show.
boring.
It'd be boring.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so oh, it's my turn. I didn't do that yet.
I don't think we got your score.
I'm gonna give Aged a 4. I agree with Andy here.
Cool.
I'm right on par with Andy because I think that the controls actually hold up pretty well for what the N64 is used to, right? Like the fact that they're like, we're not using that stick in the middle, okay? We're not going to use it. You will use it for specials, I think, and that's it. I'm pretty sure that's all they use it for. Maybe taunting.
Couldn't
Maybe
figure
that's
that out.
yeah. But other than that, they're like, no, move around with the D-pad. And then yeah, you're fine. And I'm like, you know what? This actually works. And it feels a lot better to play because I think it would have been awful. I think the controls would be terrible if you controlled your character with the joystick. So I think that using the D-pad was actually huge and it actually helped how this game is aged. I think that's a very big part of why this game is aged so well, in my opinion. And the fact that, again, like, it doesn't feel like an old game in the sense that you have so much to do with it. A lot of times it was really hard to justify $60 for a purchase back in the 90s or the early 2000s because what kind of content are you going to get from games like that? You know what I mean? Like most games that you bought in that like era are like less than 10 hours long. This you could put hundreds of hours into without even thinking about it. So
well, with
really,
inflation, that was about over $100 for a game with inflation.
That's true.
and it's very honestly like people complain about game prices now, but like back then, like NBA Jam or NBA Hang Time or something like that was coming out, and it was like a $70 game for like the Super Nintendo. Like that's legit. Like Earthbound, I think was like $100 like when it first like
Crazy.
released, and $100 back in like 95 or whenever it came out is like wild. So yeah, like you're trying to find any amount of like content you can for $60, and I think that this gives you the biggest bang for your buck in terms of like content per dollar spent. You know what I mean? So I think this game holds up incredibly well.
That's fair. Yeah.
So I gave it a 4.
Nice.
All right. Where are we at here? Total scores. Yaiser came in at the lowest, a 2.7, which is just above average. I think that's all right for the greatest wrestling game of all time. And then Andy came in next with a 3.56, and I was the highest at a 3.9, which is a little surprising. I didn't think I'd be the highest, but looking at my scores,
I thought I would be higher. That's interesting.
Yeah, 3.9. It's honestly, looking back at it after I played it again, I always have a hard time narrowing down my top 5 N64 games because the N64 to me, I don't think is a bad console, but I think it has a lot of good games, but not a lot of great games. I think that this is one of the great games for the N64. I think that this probably breaks my top 5 for the N64. So that being said, a 3.9 for this game I think is totally justified, and I think if I were to play through the entire N64 lineup, I think that score would hold up as a top 5 game for me. So
Hell yeah.
I don't feel bad about it.
It's surprising. I thought my score would be higher, but that's why I like the way you guys grade because, sure, the gameplay could be 5 for me, but not everything was 5 on this one. I think for Fable 2, we all had really high scores, though, when I was on here last time.
When we did
think
Fable,
so.
I think that they all had...
or Fable, yeah.
Yeah, they all had 5s for story. I'm looking at it right now. So Andy was at a 4.6.
Whoa.
Yaiser was at a 4.5, and I was at a 4.4. So we're all right there.
That's cool.
Yeah, story, we were 5s across the board. Gameplay, we were 4.5s across the board. Visuals, I gave it a 3.5. Everybody else was 4 and 4.5. Sound was 4.5, 4.5, 4. And age was 4.5 or a 5. So yeah, we really thought a lot of that game for sure. I mean, Yaiser, that's still one of your favorite games we've played for the show, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh, awesome. That's good to hear.
Yeah, so you guys don't hate everything that each other loves or whatever I'm saying.
No. No Mercy's like, I think this is kind of like now
It's
that
a
I
little
look at it,
niche. It's a little niche.
yeah, but it's also like these seem real. It's a lot of like peaks and valleys for No Mercy, but the peaks are great, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think that's kind of like how you look at it.
So would you recommend that somebody relives this game if they'd never played it before, whether they're a wrestling fan or not? They're just into video games and they're like, I've heard good things about No Mercy. Should I play it?
I would say yes, but I would caveat that you should try the earlier games first, because I think that helps you at least play Revenge and WrestleMania 2000 just to get you to No Mercy, so you can see. Like I said, that's a huge part of it. Is like I enjoyed the evolution of these games and how they just continued to grow. But yeah, absolutely. If you want to try what is considered one of the greatest wrestling games, and I feel like you don't have to be a wrestling fan to play it. I think it's enjoyable, fun. Sounds like you guys had a good time playing it together on stream. So I would say absolutely 100%. I'd recommend it.
And I would agree with a different caveat. I think it does help to be a wrestling fan. I don't think you need to be a wrestling fan to enjoy the game, but to want to go back and play this, I think it would help if you were a wrestling fan.
True.
What about you, Yaiser? I'm assuming you're probably on the no train, huh?
No, I would say if you ever, even for a moment of your life, were into wrestling at all, and you have some friends that also were, it's fun to play co-op. It definitely was fun to like fight you and beat you with a ladder. And
okay, relax, buddy, relax. Now, a serious question, Yaiser. So we have a lot of friends who don't really play old video games like we do. Do you think if we set up two of our friends that don't play retro video games and that aren't into wrestling, do you think they would have fun playing this game against each other?
I feel like they would just be trying to figure out how the fuck to play.
You think that would be the thing?
If they like didn't know like anything about wrestling or like or the N64?
You think it would be an hour of them just being like, how do I do this?
Probably, and until they Googled it and like you told them how to do it.
But after that hour, they would have a great time, though, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the answer I was looking for. All right. So you heard it here. We would pretty much recommend that you go relive this game. All right. Now's the time of the show where we randomly select what we're playing next week, and then after that, we will have Andy give us a retro recommendation. So I'm going to go ahead and spin that wheel if you guys are ready.
I'm ready. Spin it.
All right, yeah. So you're gonna be happy about this one.
I am.
I don't know.
Maybe
not. Maybe not. Maybe not. All right. This is part of the show where we have our guest guess what game we're playing, and I'm just going to give them a couple very, very vague clues here. So here we go. We have an action platformer.
Okay.
Released for the Sony PlayStation.
Ooh, okay.
In 2001. Developed and published by Capcom.
Oh. For PlayStation 1, that's where it's funny because if you guys know, I was a Saturn guy, and even though there's
so that era you switched to Saturn, you weren't really N64 or PS1.
I was N64 and Saturn, but my friend had a PS1, and I didn't really get a PlayStation until later on, and I was like a Saturn, like I love the Saturn. But say that again. So action platformer.
So we have action platformer released for the PlayStation in the year 2001.
Capcom.
Published and developed by Capcom.
I mean, it's not a Mega Man game, is it?
It is a Mega Man game.
All right.
I'll give you half credit unless you can you nail it down?
I honestly am not a big, beyond the NES, I'm not a big Mega Man person. So I'll take the half credit on this. At least they got that right. Mega Man
X5.
I was gonna say at least X something.
Yeah, right. X4 or
cool.
X5.
All
yeah.
right.
So I've dabbled in Mega Man X and Mega Man 2 are the only two Mega Man games I've ever played. I've honestly played Mega Man more as a Smash Bros. Character than I ever have in his own games. So I'm actually very excited to play through this one. And Yaiser, this one has the boss fights that you kind of look for.
Yeah.
And
I'm gonna enjoy this.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you're familiar, but Mega Man has like this interesting pattern kind of where, like, remember when we played through Wild Guns, you could kind of pick whatever level you wanted to go to, right? It wasn't like a set, like, world 1-1 like it is for Mario. You can pick like Leaf
who
Man
you wanted to go to fight,
or Metal Man or
I played Mega Man X, I think.
Okay, so you might actually be more familiar with this than I am.
Yeah, maybe.
Cool, but I think you might actually enjoy this one, which is that brings me joy when you enjoy these games. I'm not happy when you text me after a couple days and you're like, this game sucks, bro.
It fucking sucks, dude.
All right. That being said, we're going to be joined by, of course, Bill Tucker from A Gamer Looks at 40. And if you haven't checked out his podcast yet, I was a guest on his Mario Paint episode, which just came out this past Monday.
So you guys go check music.
We didn't make music, no, but there are plenty of musical tracks in his episode, so definitely go check that out. Gamer Looks at 40 on Spotify.
Shout out to Bill, and I just want to say I cannot wait for A Gamer Looks at 50. Can't wait. I hope you hear this, Bill.
It's gonna
not wait
for sure. But yeah, so all right, Andy, looking for a retro recommendation from you. What should we add to our master list?
Does it have? Well, I guess this was on console. I got one that's gonna definitely. We talked about that. I like tycoon games, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys done any tycoon games on the show?
We haven't done any tycoon games, but I swear to God, if you say the one I think you're gonna say, I'm gonna be very happy.
Theme Hospital.
Okay, you know what? I'm not the one I thought you were gonna say.
Were you gonna think like Roller Coaster Tycoon?
I thought you were gonna say Roller Coaster Tycoon for the Xbox. No. I thought you were gonna say that because that's the tycoon game that got me into playing tycoon games. My second favorite tycoon game of all time is Zoo Tycoon. Have you ever played?
Of course.
Okay. That I was gonna say that's a pretty big one. So,
but Theme Hospital is really great, and for the time, I still remember playing the hell out of this game. It's by Bullfrog. They were a pretty decent developer at the time.
Yep, they did Theme Park as well, I believe.
Yes, but now there's a new game that Sega develops and publishes, or maybe they just publish it, called 2 Point Hospital, which, if you've probably seen around the world, it's kind of like a spiritual successor to Theme Hospital. And don't quote me, but I think a couple of the developers from Theme Hospital helped develop 2 Point Hospital. But it's the iconic hospital tycoon game, and it's super funny. I think you guys should try it, and I hope you let me know when you do, because it would be an interesting episode.
Awesome. Do you have a system that you prefer it on? I know it's like PC, but I think it's also on like Genesis, I think, right? I think it's
PlayStation. So, but I think you guys can get it on PlayStation, but it was, this was a PC thing in the 90s for me. This is 1997 PC game, but
it would be our first like just strictly PC game.
You could buy this on GOG.com. I think Steam has it. I absolutely recommend you guys play it on a computer if you can.
Okay.
That's the only caveat for me, because we
play most of these games on our computers. So.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
So because this game was released and initially it was meant to be a PC tycoon game. Obviously it went to PlayStation, but I wouldn't want you to play that because I didn't play it. Yeah. Play the original one that was the way it was originally intended, and that was the PC.
Fair. Okay.
Cool.
That sounds good. We'll add that to our master list, and we just want to thank you one last time, Andy, for coming on. We really, really appreciate it. If you want to tell everybody one last time where they can find you.
Yeah. So on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads, it's Love Retro BTW. YouTube and TikTok is CafeBTW, and my show is CafeBTW on Twitch, which is, I'm on everything, man. Just look up Love Retro BTW. But I would say if you want to follow my everyday journey, it's Twitter. I love posting on Twitter, as you guys know, and also our retro gaming communities there. If you check my pinned tweet, come on in. We're closing in on, I think, 3,000 members in the retro gaming community, which is insane.
Yeah, it's done really well. It's awesome.
And it's positive. We haven't had a lot of like trolls and stuff, so it's been cool.
Yeah.
And
and you guys helped me name the SNES Quest, which is another thing that we do on our channel. For those of you that only are here for the podcast, check out the SNES Quest, because we do that too, and that's a lot of fun.
I know, and I'm such a stickler for things, but I hope that helped. And
for sure.
For the retro gaming community, I just like to say, like, if we hide a tweet, if you're in there, if I DM you and say something, you're not the only one I've done that to. It just means we're curating it so that we keep it a place that is not about like so much like self-promotion. It's more about like, here's what I'm doing. But I think what's cool is I want people to promote their retro podcasts and stuff like that. So
yeah.
Anyway,
no, it's really like a helpful place, and it's awesome to see a lot of people share their finds there, like what they get at garage sales or what they're currently playing and stuff like that. So it's definitely a really cool place. I check it out daily. I might not post there daily, but I do check it out every single day, and cool. it's definitely a great group if you want to join a group on Twitter, because it's sick. All right, one last time I'll say that you can join our Patreon for $2 a month, and Andy's game is being Theme Hospital. Andy's game is going to be sent to the master list, and if you want your game to be played before Andy's game, then go ahead and sign up to Patreon, and for $2 a month you can get your game on our Patreon list. Next week we have a Patreon game, so Mega Man X5 was actually recommended to us on Patreon, and then we have another one in about a month or so. We actually have a break next week because Yaiser's going on vacation. So have fun with that, buddy. And then we'll be back in 2 weeks for our next episode. So until then, guys, everybody take care, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Peace.
Go Jets.
Oh yeah, go Jets. See you guys.